I've done 3 different types of Instagram tours since I began self-publishing, and a bookstagram tour is basically just a tour of your book on Instagram. Very similar to like a blog tour, which is what used to be done, but I feel like Instagram tours and now kind of TikTok tours a little bit have been one of the really fun ways to promote books over the last few years since I started in self-publishing. So in this video, I want to go into a lot more detail about the 3 different, like totally different styles of bookstagram tours that I have personally done, and I've done some of them multiple times as well. So I'm going to share my experience and also kind of compare the costs, the amount of effort that goes into it, the results especially. We're going to talk about that at the end. We're also going to talk about my kind of final thoughts at the end and which types of tours I would do again and which ones I would not do again. All right, so first an overview of the 3 different types of tours I've done. I started out with my debut, Evelyn's Number, and I did the tour by myself, but I actually did the tour with the original cover right here. So the fact that it is as successful as it was, considering the cover didn't really speak to the genre and I didn't know better at the time, this is actually pretty impressive. And I'll talk about that more and why I think that is. Then I went on to work with StoryGram tours on The Stolen Kingdom. I believe it was for it was either the cover reveal or the release. Either way, there was an option to buy. And then I also worked with them on The Ginny Key, which was the 2nd book in this series. I did not work with them on the 3rd and 4th book, which might hint at something, but I did again come back to work with them for The Secret Gift on something that they'd added to their options, which was they had an Instagram and TikTok tour. Like I mentioned, that's sort of becoming a thing. Then I also did my own personal tour on this book again, where I set it up in the background and I contacted a bunch of people, set it all up, went super well. And then last but not least, I worked with another promo company, Sapphire Inc, on this book when it was on sale as a free book, so slightly different results than you would get from promoting a paid book. And it was actually an ebook only sale. And instead of posting on different days on Instagram and like spreading it out over a week or 2 weeks or whatever the case may be, I chose to hire her for a like 1-day blast about the book where a bunch of people all posted on the same day. So slightly different types of tours as well, but still really amazing results. And FYI, this is the same book for anybody who is wondering. This is the paperback cover and this is the hardcover cover and the ebook cover. Let's start with the tours that I did myself. This was the first time I had ever done anything like this, and I didn't even know that there were companies that did this. I just wanted to reach out to bookstagrammers and see if they would shout out my book. Now, it's really important to note that this type of tour, running it yourself, could be absolutely free. You would have to spend absolutely nothing. And for this book, I spent $0 because you can send your ebook to your readers completely for free by sending it to their Kindle to read. I have this video all about how to do that, which I will link below if you want to know more. When I did this tour, again, this is the current cover, but I actually ran the tour with this cover. So I actually sent physical copies and I only had 10 people, but 10 copies adds up really, really fast, especially if you think about you got the printing cost, shipping them to you, and then shipping them out to each individual reader. Even if you don't ship them to yourself first to sign and add stuff and package them nice, whatever, even if you ship them directly to the reader, you still have to pay for printing and shipping to them. So it's like a $10 minimum per book. So you can imagine sending it to 10 different people, that's $100 minimum. And then on top of that, I also sent to international readers because I didn't know any better and I didn't know how expensive that was. And that was up to like 25 or even 30. I think one of them was even $40 to send one book. I would not recommend sending physical books because then your costs do go up quite a bit. But the second time around, I learned my lesson, and so I only offered ebooks, which are free for me to send, like I mentioned. And so this book, I think I contacted about 60 people total, and I think 23, let me look. I have a spreadsheet for tracking. So 23 people said yes to receiving the book and then posted about the book. And I gave them a free ebook version of the book to read as a thank you for being willing to do that. Okay, before I go on to the other options, I think that it's very important to mention that while it's free money-wise, it is time intensive. So you're spending time instead of money if you choose this option. Here's a short breakdown of like all the steps that I had to go through. So step 1, I had to go and find a bunch of Instagram accounts that had beautiful pictures that I wanted to contact, that I wanted to work with, and I had to make a list of them. So that's back to that spreadsheet tracking that I mentioned. Step 2 was that I wrote a carefully crafted message that explained to them what I was asking and the benefits to them, which I think is really, really important. If you're asking somebody to do something, let them know why it would benefit them. In this case, the free book that I knew they would enjoy. And then step 3 is to personalize that message to each person as I'm sending it out. You want to be professional, but you also want to be friendly and respectful and personable. So depending on the person, I would craft that message a little differently. I always made sure to include their name, and then if there was something I liked about their account, I would shout that out, like, I love that you post about this book. You're amazing at this kind of picture, whatever the case may be, making it more personable so that you're actually having a real relationship with this person and you're not coming off as one of those scammy people that are super annoying. The fourth step is to track everybody that you're sending to, because not everybody is going to say yes. So you want to be tracking who you sent to, what their response was, and then if you sent them the book, which then is the next step, is to actually send them a download copy of your book. Or if you're sending physical books, you can do that too. And like I said, I'll link that video below about how I send my book to somebody's Kindle. That's a very complicated process. We're not here to talk about that today. But you could also send them a physical book as well, which of course would involve getting their mailing address and then sending them the book. You'll probably want to send the book to them at least a week, if not 2 or 3 or even 4 weeks before the tour. I would say a good spot would be like 2 or 3 weeks, because then they have enough time to read, but they're not going to forget about you, hopefully. And then last but not least, I always try to collect all of their email addresses so that I can then send them all a reminder email on the day the tour starts. One other really nice thing about this type of tour, besides the fact that it's free, is that the number of participants are limitless. Like if you have a lot of time and you're willing to contact possibly hundreds of people, then you could possibly get 100 participants. I mean, it's going to be a lot of work. So I stopped at, I think it was 60 people that I contacted for this, and out of that, a third of them said yes, which was a really good result. I did not get such good results the first time around because my account was much smaller and I just didn't have as many relationships already prior to asking them to basically do something for me. So that really, really helps as well if you can develop relationships outside of asking them to do stuff for you. Okay, next let's talk about StoryGram tours, because as you know, I started out with them on this book and I did do book 2, but then I stopped and I did not do books 3 and 4 because I just did not have very good results. When it came to StoryGram tours, they track everything for me on their side as far as which accounts, how many likes the post got, all those vanity metrics. But honestly, you guys, the vanity metrics are not what's most important. What's most important is, did the picture or the post or the shout out, whatever it is, lead to sales? And so I, on my end, would be tracking the sales of the books for each of these tours. Or at least I started to. I did not do this in the beginning, but I started to down the road, because with StoryGram tours, I found that a small account might sell 15 books that day. And then a massive account with, say, 100,000 plus followers would sell 5 or 6 books. So I think I spent, it's been a while and their prices have changed, but back then I think it was $250 total, including sending 7 people physical copies of the book. So that's another thing that you have to consider, is that some tour companies will only do physical copies, and you have to be willing to spend that extra money on top of that fee that you're paying the tour company. At the time with the Stolen Kingdom, there was a lot of buzz for book 1 in general. So now looking back, I wonder if some of those sales were because I was also promoting, and there's no way to track that. There's no way to be like, hey, can you use this link and I'll use this link? Like, it's just not an option. When people were going to buy the book, I didn't know where those sales were coming from. So for the Stolen Kingdom, I remember I basically broke even. I made all my money back for doing the tour, but I didn't really go much further than that. And I believe it was for a cover reveal. So that seemed, I mean, it was okay. It's exposure. That's worth paying for, even if you're not like making more, as long as you're breaking even, right? So I went on to do book 2 with them when that cover reveal happened 3 months later. This one, though, I did not feel like made its money back. It was a little bit under. And that was when I was like, you know what? I don't think I want to continue doing StoryGram tours for books 3 and 4 if they are not going to at least break even. But I wasn't sure, was that because it was a book 1 going into a book 2, and maybe you should only do a tour for a book 1? So that is why I decided to give them one more chance with this book. And they had a TikTok feature added to their website, which was way more expensive. I believe after adding in the physical books that I sent to everybody who was part of that tour, it was like $400 something at this point. Really, really expensive. And that one I definitely regret doing. It was way too expensive. And here's the really sad part, you guys, because the other tours were for cover reveals and I was doing my own promotion, and so many people were excited about the cover that I wondered, were some of those sales coming from me? This time around, I did an experiment where I asked them to do the tour on a non-important week. So the book came out in September of 2021 and I did the tour in November of 2021. That was partly just because of their availability, but then I also was like, yeah, let's find out if this tour actually does anything without me doing any promoting. And that's when I decided I'm not going to do any promoting of my own because I really want to see if this tour is actually valuable. This is when the really sad realization happened. I sold like one book that entire week. And because I had not been doing any of my own promotion, it wasn't a promotion week, it wasn't a cover reveal or a release or a sale, nothing. There was only one sale. And that's when I was like, no, this is not worth it, because I now have my eyes open to the fact that I don't think many of their accounts are actually making sales for authors, at least not in my particular tour. So poor results, very expensive, and then last but not least, there was still some time involved because I had to, well, first of all, I had to submit to the company and see if they wanted to work with me, and then once I was approved, I had to figure out the tour dates with them, and then I had to order the books and then mail all those books. I like to send them to myself still and sign them, add a little extra detail, wrap them nice, and then mail them out to each participant. So that was definitely less time involved than the tour that I did on my own, but as you can tell, there was definitely still some effort involved, probably an hour or so all totaled up. And then last but not least, let's talk about working with Sapphire Inc. on this beautiful book. And so again, this was actually an ebook tour that I did with her for a big sale when I put the book for free just a month or two ago, I think at this point. Now, I've only worked with Catherine once so far, and again, we did a very unique type of blast because it wasn't a cover reveal, it wasn't a release, it was actually a free book sale. And on top of that, I did a slightly different type of tour, a different tour style, you could say, where instead of having different people post on different days, I had a big blast all in one day with a bunch of people sharing. Catherine sent me the spreadsheet of all the participants and I can't find it right now, and the little boy is about to wake up from his nap. So I'm just gonna admit I can't remember the exact number, but it was over 20. I believe it was either 26 or 25, but it was over 20 people who participated in that blast on that day. This type of tour costs only $40 on Catherine's website, which is a massive difference from the StoryGram one, and so much more reasonable, so much more worth it because you can actually make your money back. And so of course this was a free book sale, so I checked my tracking. The book went for free on the 13th and I did all of my promotion, and just so you can have some comparison numbers, I had 464 free downloads from Amazon on the 13th, and then on the 14th was the Sapphire Inc. tour and everybody else shouting out the book, and so it had 307 downloads just from that alone on that day. And obviously free books are a different story. You might be like, why did you pay 40 bucks to shout out a free book? You're not making your money back if they're buying it for free. Well, this is book 1 in the series, and it has books 2, 3, and 4 that are paid purchases, so it's something called sell-through where readers go on to buy the next books in the series, and I make my money back that way. So I absolutely made my money back from doing the social media blast with Catherine at Sapphire Inc. So it was again like 3 times as many people posting as StoryGram tours for literally a tenth of the price. And because it was ebook only, I didn't actually send physical books to the reviewers, although I'm sure that's an option as well and something to consider, because I do think it actually helps readers to be more passionate about sharing your book and more excited to, you know, share the photo and tell their followers about it. So there is some value to sending physical books for sure, and I do think readers actually are more likely to read it if it's a physical book. But because it was a free ebook already and all the tour participants could just download it on any of the vendors that they wanted to, I didn't have to spend anything on shipping or send anybody a book in this particular case. Now, just a side note, in case I forget to say this at the end when I'm wrapping everything up, I am not saying that I would never send out physical copies again, because I do think again that there's some value there when you have readers who are more likely to read it if they have a physical book. But it's just so much more expensive that you definitely have to ration who you're sending to and budget it and maybe give most people an ebook version instead. And last but not least, this isn't an expense because I didn't actually pay anything for it, but I did have a gift card that I got through my bank where I get cashback rewards in the form of gift cards and stuff like that. And so I did have an incentive to join the tour by saying there's one gift card I'm going to give to one of the tour participants at the end of the tour. So I do think that maybe helped people be more excited about signing up, but you could also use a signed paperback of the book or something like that as well. Okay, so now let's bring it all together and talk about kind of comparisons and my final thoughts on what is and what isn't worth it to do, just for you guys to know going forward yourselves. The most cost-effective tour by far was when I did the tour by myself and I did ebooks only. And I think that's absolutely valuable. Whenever I have time to do tours again, I will want to do that myself because I enjoy reaching out to other readers, talking to them about my book. I really feel like the relationships were the strongest in that case because I was able to talk to them one-on-one. It was kind of like almost face-to-face relationships where they got to know me as the author and they were then more excited to talk about my book, honestly. And I feel like the most sales always came from the tours that I set up myself and my own promotion. StoryGram tours was massively expensive, and as you guys saw, it did not pan out. The ROI, or return on investment, was terrible. So I would not be working with them again in the future. Unfortunately, I think they have some beautiful accounts that they work with. They're wonderful people, but I just don't think the cost is appropriate and doable as an indie author. I don't think we can make our money back. And I think here's the strangest part that might blow your minds is that a lot of those bigger accounts, again, did not sell as many books as the smaller accounts did. So I think honestly, we put way too much stock in vanity metrics and they're not as important as people think they are. Last but not least, Sapphire Inc was priced just right. I feel like Goldilocks here where I'm like too hot, too cold, just right. And I just really appreciated working with Catherine and I thought she did a fantastic job. So the cool part was I did not have to do a lot of work because she was putting the tour together. She has all her contacts, she has a streamlined process, and then it wasn't too expensive, although I wouldn't blame her if she raises her prices a little bit, but it was still much more feasible to spend $40 and then I had a coupon on top of that and it was just absolutely completely worth it. I definitely made my money back even with a free sale, so I can't even imagine how much better it would go with something that's paid. So what I would do with future books is I first of all would never work with a tour company for like a book 2 or on. I would only do like a book 1 or a standalone, something that can be exciting for a reader to start with that book, if that makes sense, because I found that really on books 2, 3, 4, and so on, my promotion is probably the best that I can do, and then I would just go back and promote book 1 to all the new readers, because when you're doing a tour, you're reaching new readers, right? And then the second thing, if I were doing a brand new release of like a book 1, something that a reader could start here, is I would do both my own tour and I would also hire somebody probably on separate time frames so that I could keep the momentum going, keep up some excitement, and have as many bookstagrammers talking about the book as possible. And I do think I would be willing to put in the work, but I would also be willing to spend a reasonable amount of money such as the Sapphire Inc tours because I do think it's valuable and worth it and can help spread the word to audiences outside and past my own, if that makes sense. So those are my thoughts about doing bookstagram tours, the 3 different styles. Let me know if you've done other styles or if you have any thoughts that I didn't think of to mention. I'd be happy to chat more in the comments. And yeah, I hope you guys have an awesome day and I'll talk to you again very soon. Bye!
It started